Hey guys, it's Divest. Today I wanted to start a new series talking about individual firearms. The PK was the first firearm I used for a significant amount of time outside of a video game, so I thought I would start there. The thing I see about the PK online is mostly disinformation. Forgotten Weapons talked it up as being such an awesome system because it is lightweight and compact. I don't think he actually believes that. I think he just read off something from either a Russian propagandist or a whiny know-nothing boot, the grass is always greener and all that. So to give you some perspective, I got into designing firearms because I bought into the disinformation and thought that the PK was the best machine gun ever designed. But my real-world experience had taught me that the PK was a piece of shit. So I intended to invent a better machine gun, only to realize that there were already better machine guns in service when the PK was adopted. Before I start, I just want you to know that even though the PK sucks, the solution wouldn't be to dump a mediocre machine gun for a good assault rifle, because assault rifles can't fulfill the same niche. Similarly, the PK can't fulfill the same niche that a weapon like the MAG or M60 can, while having no real advantage on its own, hence why it sucks. Throughout this, I'm going to be comparing the PK to the M60, another 1950s-era weapon. To a lesser extent, the MAG is a lot better than the PK too. I just know that the gap in technology has grown over the decades with the likes of the M240 Lima, M60E6, Mark 48, and MG5. The PK has had some improvement in Russia with the PKP, but it's still not even on par with Western technology from the Truman administration. First off, let's talk about the weight. The PK is deceptively one of the lightest weapons in its class at 9 kilos versus 10.5 for the M60 and 12 for the MAG. The problem is that these weight savings are achieved by cutting down on the mass of critical components to the operation of the weapon. This is a problem with basically any machine gun under 20 pounds, but since it's Russian, they managed to make it worse. Compared to the M60 especially, but to a lesser extent, the MAG, the PK, has a paper-thin barrel. A thinner barrel means less mass to heat up, so quicker heating, without having to take into account the superior metallurgy of the West. So an argument against that I hear a lot is that you have quick change barrels, which just filters out anyone who has never actually used a machine gun in combat. Quick change barrels are theoretically superior technology, but in practice they don't work because you will likely not have a spare barrel either, because it got lost or because you would rather carry an extra belt in its place, since you're always more likely to shoot 100 rounds rather than to shoot 100 rounds and not have a break in firing long enough for your barrel to cool. If you do have a barrel, you don't have the sound mind to change it in combat. Even if you do change it, you're not carrying the used barrel after that, since it will be hot enough to cause third-degree burns. Quick change might work on tripod-mounted machine guns with a full 4-man team, but that's about it. That's why you don't see quick change barrels on new machine guns, Western or Russian. It's much more practical to just use a heavier barrel that can put more rounds downrange before overheating. The receiver also doesn't last as long on the PK either, so even if you offset the weight advantage of the PK by carrying a spare barrel, the receiver would still stop you from matching the firepower of a M60 with no spare. The reliability of the PK is also mediocre in the real world because of a variety of factors. Corrosive primers mean that if you fire the gun and then let it sit a few years without meticulously cleaning it first, you're going to come back to a rusty, chewed-up piece of crap. The rimmed ammunition causes feeding problems you don't get with rimless, though it's not nearly as bad as with magazine-fed firearms using rims. Recycling and reusing non-disintegrating belts means that stretched or damaged parts can also come back to bite you. All of this is stuff that could be solved if the Russians were better at managing their resources. In 2024 dollars, a light machine gun costs the equivalent of $10,000, so anyone with any sense would realize it's not worth introducing a critical flaw in their machine gun design in order to save $1 if you manage to recover an empty belt of ammunition after a fight. The empty belt also hangs off the side of the gun and gets in your way. Which leads to my second problem with the PK, bad ergonomics. Why should I care about the weight in absolute limits when it feels like crap compared to the M60? The M60 is about gold standard when it comes to machine gun ergonomics, for a weapon that actually works as a machine gun. Something like the Stoner 63 has great ergonomics, but it can't sustain fire like a M60. The PK has no handguard, so there is nowhere to grip. The recoil is immense from the overgassed action. The sights are crappy open sights that every intelligent person had moved past by this point. It's also 10 centimeters or 5 inches longer than the pig. The M60 and more modern examples like the Mark 48 and MG5 can be effectively used as battle rifles, firing accurate bursts from the shoulder, while the PK is more like the MG42, where you lose track of your target completely as soon as you squeeze the trigger, even when you have it set up. The mag doesn't work as a shoulder weapon either, but you can at least remain on target when it's braced. Now let's move on and talk about why the M60 is better than the mag beyond just firing from the shoulder. Compared to the mag, the M60 is an improvement, and the so-called problems with the guns aren't real issues. Any claim about the gun losing parts is from idiots who trained on guns after they had gone through Vietnam for 5 years, then were sent back to be used to train thousands of recruits over millions of rounds without maintenance. If you put water in the gas tank of a Toyota Corolla, it won't start, doesn't mean it's not a reliable car. Similarly, an 85 IQ infantryman in training can bend a spring lock because he doesn't have the mechanical intelligence to slide it off. It's telling that no one except for American trainees have a negative thing to say about the M60. The muzzle-mounted bipod also gives you mechanical leverage when you're changing barrels, compared to the carry handle on the PK and mag, which is important because the barrel and receiver will warp when heated and compounded by carbon fouling seal the two parts together. It's kept out of the way of the handguard so that you can maintain a proper horizontal grip, and the muzzle-mounted bipod makes for a more stable firing position, like the MG42 and M1919-6. The single-position gas system on the M60 is also typically derided by critics, whereas other designs have multiple position gas pistons for adverse conditions. The M60 system was so good that it was directly copied onto the 240 Bravo and Lima, which makes sense because it helped to give the 60 its immortal receiver, by reducing stress on the receiver during cycling to a minimum. The same people who shit-talk this system would also mindlessly praise the Stoner 63 for taking it past the point of viability to reduce felt recoil. In theory, you should be able to counteract the effects of fouling in the gas cylinder with a multi-position gas piston. But then, if you stop and think about this for 30 seconds, you realize this is moronic. First off, you can put thousands of rounds downrange before enough carbon builds up to cause the gun to fail. The process for cleaning the gas cylinder on the M60 or any machine gun takes about 30 seconds in a rag, and since the gas cylinder is always on the barrel, you can just swap it out if you're getting problems with short stroking anyways. If anything, you would want to have a multi-position gas piston for reducing the amount of gas, because machine gun gas ports get eroded very quickly by the high volume of ammunition they burn through, and people are mounting suppressors on belt feeds now. The M60 receiver, especially Rock Island Arsenal-made M60 receivers, will last for millions of rounds, which is why the E4 and E6 are sold as upgrade kits for original receivers. With an adjustable gas piston like on other machine guns, what can happen is that you end up with an idiot who sets it to a higher pressure setting unnecessarily and shortens the lifespan of the receiver with the added stress. Like those cretins who think the MG5 has a cyclic rate of 840 rounds per minute because you can set the gas position to 3. The real reason why we have such a misperception about the PK and the M60 is the fact that most people who use the PK in combat end up dead and didn't have the opportunity to use a real machine gun for the contrast. Similarly to what happened to MG42 users and why it has such a legendary reputation. Thanks for listening. Make sure to mindlessly bleed off something you heard a YouTuber say about these guns in the comment section below so that I can humiliate you for running your mouth on a topic you don't even understand.